In 2011, I had an idea and I saw this is the chance for me to learn Objective-C.
Karla Fernandes is a visionary leader and creative professional known for her passion, innovation, and drive.
Apple has given me this and I am learning this course. I will build an app. I got some friends involved. My task was to code it. I was about to write it to a prototype that would be testable, and Apple quick released a new version of iOS. And this really frustrated me.
Where does today and in the future Gen AI come into play?
AI has been absolutely amazing and giving us so many things. And I think
how difficult it is for somebody who has no coding skills.
Yeah, if you have no coding skills, if you are not technical, there are a few options for you today. I like to simplify it to a 5-step process. That is.
Welcome, Karla.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It is great.
It's a pleasure. Michael and I have been talking about this specific idea and area for a long time. And we were always like, we should come with some ideas and try to build apps with no code. Obviously, time is a little challenging because we got our hands into various things. But at some point, we're going to get to this. So you're a perfect guest for us today because I think it'll help us whenever we're ready for it. But what we want to start off with is, how did you even become an expert in no-code app building where clients are coming to you for help?
That's a great question. I think the normal route is that the people that have no technical skills get really attached to no code very fast. Like they build landing pages, they build websites, and now we can also build native apps. But that's not really my case. I had extensive contact with code. I did learn several programming languages. I used HTML, CSS, programmed in PHP, like JavaScript, and so many old languages that I would not even name it here. So I saw web evolving from the start, from the blue links to what we have right now, using colors, images, and everything. I worked delivering websites, web stores, and this was the normal thing for me. Worked with CMSs like content management systems, open source and some not. But in 2011, I had an idea and I saw, okay, you know what? This is the chance for me to learn Objective-C. And I went through it. I went to, Apple has given me this and I am learning this course. I will build an app. I got some friends involved. One of them were doing illustrations for the app. The other one was more into design and also writing code for it. So we were 3 and it was amazing. But my task was to code it. I was about to arrive into a prototype that would be testable, and Apple quick released a new version of iOS. And this really frustrated me. And I thought, you know what? This is not for me. So I added all that content that was created from my friends into a folder and kind of just let it go. So this is 2011. 10 years later, I saw a no-code solution that could allow me to build an app of such. And when I saw that and seeing that it would be running on top of Figma, that is one of the tools for design today that's most common, that is I use every day, I saw it as an opportunity to build it. So I took 1 month off. That normally I do that every December. It's kind of a educational vacation. And I started to learn that too. And I built my app in a month. And soon enough, the Scarf app was born. And I was really helped doing this process from zero to start. Because for me, this for web was very common, but it was the first time I built and delivered a native app. So it was really amazing. And after that, I actually built more than 20 apps for me, for myself, and for customers. I also guided more than 5,000 people in building apps through mentorship 011 or courses. No code has really empowered me building more than I thought it was possible.
That's amazing. I'm curious here because as you mentioned, all the people you've also helped, have a lot of those people came in with specific coding experience, or had a lot of them had absolutely no experience? Because I'm wondering how difficult it is for somebody who has no coding skills.
Yeah, if you have no coding skills, if you are not technical, there are a few options for you today. Of course, you can hire me. You can also have me accompanying you throughout the process and do it yourself. So you just be there every step on the way to guide you through the best way you can build that. Or you can also learn by yourself. This, of course, takes a little bit longer. In the example I gave you, for example, it took me to learn to build the first app 77 hours. I am a very fan of time management, and I clock everything I do. And if you don't have any coding skills, it's really crucial that you understand the problem. You may have an idea, but you have to understand the problem. You have to validate that idea, do some market research, understand your target audience. I like to simplify it to a 5-step process. That is, you have the idea, number one. The second one is you create a Figma prototype. The third one, you use a tool like I do, use Bravo Studio. Then you can Bravorize your file. This works on top of Figma. Then you bind your data using Airtable. And the fifth step, you go to the store. So you publish your app.
And what was that tool you said? Was it Bravo?
Yes, Bravo Studio.
What exactly is Bravo Studio? I actually haven't heard of it.
So Bravo Studio is a tool that kinds of connects your Figma file, that is your design file that normally we do, to the data you want to make it possible on your phone. So Bravo Studio is where the no-code magic happens. And they are connecting here your file with your data and making every piece that you thought for your app real on your phone, on your iPhone or in your Android phone.
Can you talk a little more about the Airtable step? Because when I or most people probably hear Airtable, they think fancy spreadsheet in the cloud. How does that get used as a database?
Sure. So you can use an API to do an API call for it and read all the data that is there. But Airtable here is just an example. You could use any other tool. You could use a SQL database. You could use Sano database. You could use even a Google spreadsheet. Everything that you can connect can be used by data. Or you could also create just a static file if your app is static, and you can do directly a JSON file. That also works.
Interesting. So an Airtable almost just becomes a little in between for people who maybe don't feel that expertise of jumping into like a SQL database or any of those other tools.
Exactly.
Okay. And then obviously the spreadsheet's the least sophisticated, but to your point, depending on what they're building, could be sufficient.
Totally.
Karla, you mentioned, again, going back to your 5 steps, and you talked about the validation process as step 1. Can you go a little deeper into that? Like, how would you actually validate the idea before you try to build it?
If you have an idea, it's really important for you to talk with your target audience. So you may do interviews with the people that you think you are going to solve. A lot of people try to create apps or build any other kind of project, like a web app or a native app, based on a problem they are having themselves. So they are their perfect customer. But even when you are your perfect customer, you are not your user. You want other people to use your product. And that means that you have to go to find those people. You have to find them, interview them, ask about what is their problem, see if this is a problem huge enough that they actually want a solution for. Because sometimes there is a problem, but the problem is not necessarily what they need a solution for. They have something else. I remember an episode on your podcast that spoke about this a little bit. You need to go after the people that are going to actually use it and see that if they really need it and they are also interested in paying for it, if that is what you actually want to do.
And how would you find these people, talk to them, or have them actually use it?
So it really depends on what you are going to build, right? So for example, I have a customer that has a CMA course. So it is an exam that happens there in US for accountants. And he has a course. And this course, he's already have 6,000, 7,000 people doing the course. So he realized that he really wanted to do the best for those students, for them to pass the exam, because this is really good for him. The students pass on the exam. They know, they tell other people where they study. So this comes revenue for him. So he invested on creating an app. This app is a very simple flashcard app. The students go there to review the material they learn throughout the course. So they watch these video classes, they read content, but in the app, they can just train the questions and over and over and over again. They can mark them as, okay, I learned it, so I know this one, or this one I should review later. Then they have these different lists. So what he did was to talk with those people when we were in phase of prototype, if they could understand it, if they were interested. But since the app is free, what he actually created was also a way to people be aware of his course, because the people downloaded the app but didn't know his course and went to the opposite direction. So he created the app to help his students, and he ended up also getting students from the app to his course.
Nice.
Interesting. So let's say somebody validated an idea. They know there are no good tools out there, but they haven't seeked out an expert. How would somebody know what tools to use, and what are the options out there?
It is like the sea. There are so many options. You are totally right. It can be very confusing. It is really important when you are starting with no code, if you want to get into this journey, for you to have a focus. So from the start, know what you want to build is the best you can do to yourself. Because if you know what you want to build, you can validate if that tool will give you that result, if you will be able to build that before you start building. And that is actually the reason why I am not just learning one no-code tool. I'm using several tools. I use Bravo Studio for native apps. I use Todo for web apps. I'm learning Communico to do a overall layer integration to this stack. I am also using Airtable, Sano, other databases. So every case, you have to think about what do you want to achieve before you start to deciding which tool is the best. Of course, you can also think most important things for you, right? Like, is it easy to use? Does it give me some templates to start? Some tools like Software or WeWeb or Glide have templates which allow you to evolve fast. Todo also has that. So depending on what you want to build, there are also possibilities today, like the Good Barber, that allow you to create the 3 apps in one. It's like you are creating the web app, the native app for iOS, the native app for Android. So it really depends on each case. And that's why I keep studying to be able to give my customers the best solution that they should focus on. And not just like be the person of the tool, but I am more of the solution-oriented product designer.
So interesting with what you just said. So in that case, each of the tools, it's not necessarily going to spit out for you your web-based version, your Android version, or your, okay, got it. I never really even thought about that. I almost thought they would be set up to optimize for that. Interesting.
There's so much there. If somebody wanted to understand the pros and cons of each tool, is there some kind of a online resource? I mean, where would somebody start to know, hey, I'm going to build an app like Instagram. Which one should I use? Which no-code tool? Like, where would the research come from this?
That's a great question. With Bravo Studio, you could build something similar to Instagram, or maybe you are a creator and you want to create this app for yourself instead of being just all the time on social media where people may see your content or not see your content. You could create an app for yourself and monetize that, right? A lot of people are in the end trying to search monetization. So this would be a great way. But now talking about the resources, I want to add one thing. I created an app called No Code Craft. In 21 days, actually explaining the step-by-step I did on Twitter, and also created a website for that to show a little bit of the process, like every single step from research from the idea, then research to the prototype, validation, feedback, iteration, and then publishing the app and also launching it on Product Hunt and other websites. It was very interesting to do this process in 21 days and explaining the step by step. And it took me 21 days exactly because I wanted to show people that you don't need a lot of time. I was working a couple of hours a day in the project, and that was it. So this is totally possible. And in this project, you have more than 300 no-code tools there for you to search for some tags, some keywords that you could find. Some tools, at least to investigate. It's like a database of no-code tools.
Very interesting. Actually, it makes me curious to understand a little bit more, like what are some examples of some of the tools that either you've built or you've worked with others to build?
So most of the time for native apps, I have been using Bravo Studio. I am a Bravo expert, and I really enjoy the tool because the process is done on top of Figma. This is what already companies use. And the benefit for companies that I have worked with sometimes, like people think that this is just for the founders, but it's also for larger companies. What happens in a large company is that we have a design team. There is a design lead. We are doing prototypes. We are testing it internally and with some users too. But then we hand off it to development, and not always everything we build is exactly the same way. But then QA get to test it for quality, and they assume things were supposed to be like that. If it's working, it's fine. But I have seen a lot of things like square buttons instead of rounded corner buttons, oranges with different tones, and you name it, a lot of things. So in a big company, this process can help a lot for you to, as a designer, test the real thing, direct the real thing to user testing, right? Like you do the user testing with those people directly with an app that is working, that is supposed to emulate what exactly the developer should build. And this is really helpful for them to build the right thing, as well for QA to know how it should look and how it should work.
So going into a little further, they're like, if you had to pick like 3 of your favorite, applications, if you will, or however you want to capture them, no-code tools you've built, what would be 3 that you really like? What was the purpose of the 3 you developed?
Okay, so I did create one app for UX UI community. It started very small as an event app. And this event app actually got a lot of traction. Very quickly, I got to 1,000 downloads. When I realized that, I thought, okay, so junior designers are really interested in those events, but this could be much better for them. So I decided to invest a little bit more time on it, added new sessions, and later, after this iteration, I doubled the number of users in a 3-month, in a quarter. So it is really interesting to think about building apps also for this evolution, because it's much faster. So you don't need to put all your cards on the table when you start. You can do that with the time. And if I mention 2 others, I would say from my personal projects, I started with one app called 100 Animals. And building it because I saw my stepkids playing with a book that just had the animals and its names. And I thought, oh, it's kind of cute seeing them playing with it. So I am one person. I have stepkids, and as stepmother, I'm also worried about kids being in front of the screen a lot. Still, if you do want to allow your kid to be in front of the screen, I would say that's better that you do it with something that is educational. So I created an app that allows the kid to play through 100 animals, like 100 cards, that they can listen the name of the animal, read. So if they are toddlers, smaller, they can already start the process of evolving cognitively their wording, like they're speaking, and also their reading. So this is a little bit more educational. And if you want to put a kid in front of your screen, it won't be such a problem, right? Like it's not a game. It's not something that you get addicted to. It's something that you play for a while and probably leave. So this project was kind of a very interesting reception. And I end up doing it in 7 languages.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I was going to ask about the language, component of it, because you could definitely see how that would scale. So really cool.
what's an example of an app or a type of app that can be built in under 8 hours and published?
This app with the animals, for example, was built in 8 hours. And I want to bring here another point too. Remember the scarf app? It was my first example I gave you with 77 hours. I would definitely today, with the experience I have with the tool, build that in under a day or even half day, because it is like templates, you know. After you build one, you can copy and paste to another and start to evolve much faster than you would. So creating the second app and the third, in the case of the 100 animals, changing languages, it was like a couple of hours, and then adding the content and publishing the stores would take a couple of hours too, because you have to answer a bunch of forms and things like that, create assets for the marketing and doing a proper launch. But it's something you can build in a half day.
On that, it makes me curious because first off, yeah, that's amazing. And because what the reach does for that is, I think to your point, as you looked at it and we're thinking about how there was a better way for kids, it turning it into something that could be that quick that somebody can do to solve these problems, just that, or even for themselves. Like, despite profitability, obviously that one, you know, as they can grow and obviously have a financial component to it, but it's great just to be able to feel like there's something within reach there. And I'm curious, as you do develop some of these, how do you approach the marketing of them? Or do you have a kind of a process around that?
I would love to have a magic pill that would do marketing for me. And a friend just recommended me to be open to people that actually want to do cases and show how marketing can be effective, to do something like that for me, right? So I am in search. If you are someone that actually do marketing, is good at it, and would love to have a app case and show how marketing can be effective about after launch and how after marketing can actually show the results for your app, I'm totally open for it. I have several apps for you to work with, and I would definitely give that away. But what the little I do is to definitely talk with my network, inform my network through LinkedIn to X. Also use Product Hunt. You can use others too, like Indie Hackers. That is the minimum, totally minimal. And I would say really essential too to create a landing page. So I create also a landing page and do some SEO, but I'm also not expert there. So I do the bare minimum and I see things growing organically. This is a plus for me because when I see things going very fast, I know that organic is really working. And then I invest more time on it. And that's the way it goes. I have to prioritize. I am a solopreneur. And as a solopreneur, I just have this number of hours in a day. And you have to be wise with your time, right?
That's fair. So you definitely, it sounds like you enjoy the creation process a lot more than the marketing process. Like that's where you spend a lot of your time.
Definitely. And you have to see too, because every product is actually a chance for me to improve my skills. So my main goal is not actually to sell thousands of apps, even though I have done that. It is more like I am every app trying to get one assumption done or built with a different kind of feature. And when I do that, I'm learning and being a better consultant for my customers, for the founders that want to build the apps themselves or want my mentorship.
Which you said something earlier that to me I thought was really interesting, and it ties to is, I think you referred to it as an education vacation, where you said, yeah, I mean, I love the concept of that. I'll admit, for me, when I go on vacation, I'm often like, okay, what books am I, I do look forward to learning and picking up things still, in that case. But is that something you approach every single year as like a set thing, or is it periodically?
Yeah, it has been yearly. I try to get December off for that. And right now it has been more than once a year because I just learned Todo, for example. I really love challenges. Mm-hmm. I really love challenges. I think it's really good because they keep you there on time with your deliverable. You make a promise. You don't want to break a promise for yourself, right? That's terrible. When you I don't make promises I cannot keep with my customers. at all. But I also want to keep those with myself. I think those are very important too. One, you can prioritize yourself too. So
Yeah.
building with a challenge is really interesting. I don't know if you ever heard, probably did. There is a project called Build Space. They just had this season 5 this year. And I decided, okay, in this season 5, I create a product called Team of One that is a portfolio showcase for solopreneurs like myself. I have 20 apps to show and no place that would put all the 20 apps together. You
Yeah.
could use Linktree or other kind of bio related, but they are all ugly, all with those buttons that don't make sense. So I realized, okay, I built a product using Todo that is a web app.
Uh-huh.
Everything that can be built with React as code can be built today with Todo. And they are about to turn into an open source platform, which for me, it's just already mind blowing. So I took these 5 weeks to learn and to build this project. And I am about to teach it soon on my YouTube channel. So it is really interesting to approach those challenges and think about an idea that you want to build, and also choose a different tool that you could be building that to, so that you can learn the skills.
I love it. That's great.
You know, when I hear a lot of this, one thing that my brain goes to is, well, if it's becoming so easy, is the app stores getting flooded with a lot more apps? And if they are, is it becoming harder to stand out? So what's your advice on whether it's on the UI UX or the functionality and feature sets, or just the concept of, like, what should somebody do to stand out in a noisier world today, because it's easier for people to publish apps?
Yeah, going back to validation. You really need to find your niche and know that these people actually want the product you are building. Sometimes you don't know. And I build a lot of things without knowing it. Even though right now I'm trying to focus on searching a keyword that works. I also did a challenge called Build the Keyword. It's from this tool. They give you ideas that have huge volume of search on Google, but that you could rank very easily in the top 10 by doing very simple steps. So it is really interesting. Maybe you find there an idea that you like. In my case, it was about bilingual learning. So it was bilingual Spanish, bilingual English. And I turned just that app that I had for 100 animals, it became 550 words. That was a selection of words.
Mm-hmm.
And then now became bilingual kids. That is for families that have kids that are growing bilingual, right? Like sometimes the father is from one family country and the mom speaks another language too. And one of them is absent. So the kids really need some help in improving that other language. And this is a way to also measure success if people actually want that, right?
Yeah.
But coming back to your question, so I really believe that the store search and Google search are the best places. Even YouTube search are the best place for you to see Google Trends. If people are interested in that, if they are searching that, or if you want to build something that already exists, because sometimes you do, you also can check their website. You can check complaints about the product. You can check their app reviews and see what people say this app is lacking, what the people say this app is good at, that they would actually use it just because of that, because this is super essential, and what they say they would love to see there, but is not. So this is a huge marketing opportunity for you to bring those people that are complaining to your side, because you offer that.
How much time would you spend in that process of reading app reviews and doing research on Google and YouTube keywords and search keywords? How much time would you spend on that process before actually getting into it?
I would say 30% of the time that you are going to build the project. So if you are doing a project in 8 hours, 30% of that should be related to researching, to knowing if this project is actually feasible, if it's interesting, and what should be there as features and what should not, and what is actually your differential, right? Because doing something that is already in the market, if you don't do it differently or don't offer some differential, it's a waste of time.
What was the percentage that you said?
Like 30%.
Even if it's, because where I'm curious on that is, should that number be different? If it's an 8-hour app, again, maybe the complexity isn't there or whatever it is that you're building, but would you spend less time validating an app that might take 8 hours than you would an app that might take 40 hours to build? Or would they both actually require more or about equal time because you want to know it's a good idea? I mean, I guess you're investing less time, so maybe you're less worried, but I guess I would have thought in my head that to really make sure an idea is validated, you would want to be really thorough about your research, and that might actually be more equal. But it sounds like you're saying maybe not.
No, definitely. Like in the case of 8 hours, kind of 30% of it should have, like you should do this research, right? But if you are building a project that, like I have a customer, a founder that I was accompanying through the process of creating her app. And she came to me 6 months after she started. She was already like, trying to find her way around it too. She were doing little mistakes that she could have been done faster, but she didn't know how. So when she came to me, in one day, she kind of got unstuck, and she was like, oh my God, if I would have done this before, I probably would have done this 6 months in a month, right? Because this was so like she wanted to build it, but it was not the right way. There were really little small things. So when you are validating your idea, depending on the time that you want to put on that project, I think it will really change the time you allow it for market. Because if you are doing an app for you to learn, for example, which I did for start, you don't really care so much about the market. You are not really onto downloads. You are into learning and building and publishing. But if you want to do something that you are sure that you have market and so on, you spend a big amount of the time there. And when I'm talking about 30%, maybe you do this in 6 months, and this will be 2 months about research. So it really, you scale accordingly with your project and with your goals too.
Got it. That makes sense. And I think at the same time, something else that you pointed out with that individual who spent a fair amount of time researching, we can also get stuck in researching forever and never actually make progress. So there is that fine balance between saying this is good enough, let's move forward. And I think that other big benefit of the research stage is if you spend enough time there and you're really good about how you capture things, well, that's where you're also discovering these fishing holes in the other places, so that when you do decide to start marketing, you now possibly have a built-in audience, or at least know where they're hanging out, which can help.
Yeah, or you can even create a roadmap showing you a little bit of what you see that will be the future of your product. So this also allow people to understand where you are going. Maybe you start with this feature, but you already have a goal to build more, and this can allow people to trust you more.
Can I ask you on that topic, for when it comes down to like your MVP and building that minimal viable product, how do you approach that? Because again, in no code, I'm sure people can get carried away because they're like, well, it's more, I don't want to say easy, but it's not, the time invested has been greatly reduced. So how do you approach determining what your MVP should be?
So as the name says, minimal viable product should be really the minimum. Right? I really like to discard a lot of things that most of the apps have. For a starter, a login. Like many times you don't need a login. You can just give it to your users, use their device ID. That is like each phone has a device ID. And then you know that who is using this app is on this phone. And then you can save that way. You don't need to make the hustle of, create an account to use. I actually think this approach scares more people than brings more people in.
Okay, interesting.
I don't even know what your app offers, how it's designed, if it is fitting my needs, and I already have to create an account. You send me a lot of emails. I don't want these emails. And even if I say that I don't want them, you send me a couple. I think it's really important to think about features that are really important in the idea, that really impact your public. So getting back to that example where you go to the App Store, see reviews of a competitor, what you can do is to get one of those things that they don't have. or the things that people actually wished, and start with that. So I don't know what would be. Like, for example, if you would create an Instagram for yourself today, like a creator app, maybe you don't need pictures. Maybe you want just videos, or maybe you just want pictures, or maybe you want to create a challenge. So your Instagram could be different of the real Instagram. It will probably look different too, hopefully. Like, even using patterns, you can have different types of design and different types of features there too.
Karla, how do you approach, when I say you, like somebody that wants to do this by themselves and not hire an expert like you, and they don't have experience in product development where UI, UX, where a user's actually the tangible thing they experience? How would someone know how to approach UI, UX to build something that is intuitive, easy to use without much experience? I mean, do the tools offer you guidance?
No. There is no really guidance on UX, UI, and that's why I do believe that design and no code is kind of the future, because designers, you'll be able to, I already doing 70% of the project, right? So now we can also do and publish the product without a development team and help those companies actually go fast to market, see if their product is interesting or not to it, and move on, right? And when this gets into a lot of users or has a lot of demand, they can put a development team on the side that you help them create that app. But getting back to your question, designers have a lot of advantages here. And if you are not a designer, you should not be discouraged, because what a lot of tools offer are templates. And even without UX, UI experience, you have something that you probably didn't realize. You use apps every single. And by using them, you kind of start to think a little bit how the user is going to use an app, right? Like you click here, go here, and then this happens. So this is kind of the same. Of course, probably won't be what an expert like me or other designers would do, but still it's good enough for you to get feedback from your possible customers, from your family, from your friends. Do a prototype, put in front of them, and ask them, give them a task. Like, when designers are like, when I am testing an app, what happens is I get the prototype, give it to you, and say like, Michael, how would you go about finding an event in this app and subscribing to it? So it is an event app. You probably have in your head the step-by-step that the user would do. And I tell you, even if you do, many users, you do something different. Some you go to the search and say like UX, UI event. Some you click on the tab that's called events. Some you just click in all the icons and see what is there until they find it. So everyone has a different process, and you have to test with at least 5 users. This is the magical number in design. And after testing, you see the problems that your app have, and you can iterate and improve. But the ideal world is you get a designer. If you don't want to do that, try this.
Where does today and in the future Gen AI come into play for no code?
AI has been absolutely amazing and giving us so many things. And I think this is the perfect marriage with design and no code. It's like you maybe were bad at writing copy for your product. Now you have AI to help. You maybe were really bad at deciding design for your app. Adobe offers you something like that. There is Wizard that also offers you to do this app design for you. And there are several tools that would offer something similar. So this will help you with the design. They will help with copy. I don't see any product yet being much able to do it all together, but it can also help you evolve faster using the tools, right? Creating images for your product, maybe you also need that, like a market assets, or even for inside the app, maybe it's a content app, so you can also use the AI for that. And I have on my plans here an app that will be entirely with AI in everything, like doing research with AI, then doing also the design a little bit there into the colors, things like that. So I think it's a very interesting marriage, and you saw the last years evolving with AI so fast, and no code is also changing so fast, but not as fast, right? Like these tools and design has been the way it is for a long while. I would say at least a decade. We are kind of doing the same process, cutting some steps, investing on more on other steps, but it's kind of the same process, evolving by iteration.
Are any of the tools that you mentioned, Figma, Bravo, and the ones that you use, have they already integrated AI? Like, is there a OpenAI ChatGPT integration already there, or not yet?
So Bravo has an AI that allow you to make questions, and if you are stuck on something on the process, also a plugin that helps you to get the tags that we use to name the areas of the files so that it works on your phone using AI. Figma launched an AI into this config last conference this year, and then they took it out for people were creating very crazy things and copying several designs, it seems, and they were not so happy with the results, and kind of froze the project for now. But they have still some functionalities like that were very interesting. For example, doing a prototype with AI, that the AI would understand where each click would do, and then doing this all combinations with AI, which I thought was kind of magical, and I am totally waiting to see it further.
It does make you wonder whether or not there is that future where somebody just does tell AI, here's what I want. I love the site. Make it the same but different. Yeah, I mean, obviously, and I think we all know that works so far, but then as soon as there are changes or modifications, that's why you need to make sure you understand how something is ultimately built out and designed. And then design itself is also very fickle because, you try to duplicate too many designs. Well, now it might look nice like the other one, but I think about it almost like clubs going back when. If you're not constantly staying ahead of, whatever people are looking for, then your design is actually old, and you got to figure out how you're making sure that you're a step ahead of.
And kind of in that vein, how could somebody avoid failing when they're building no-code tools and products?
I would say they should not avoid failing. That is actually great. Like you show that you build several products, and you can go to the next and the next and the next. And what is failing, right? Is it you putting out there your product and hearing crickets? Is it acquiring 5 customers? Is that maybe having the possibility to get, 30,000 customers and getting just 3,000? So I think it's for the maker itself should be always an improvement. And I would say the failing as a possibility to iterate and improve, instead of this is not the point for you to give up. It's a point for you to improve your skills and also improve the product and see what other people actually want.
So I love what you said too, because obviously, the truth is, sure, we can say to somebody, do these things. Like you gave 5 things that people, if they follow that step, that will help them, increase their chances of avoiding failure. But the reality is any successful entrepreneur, if that's their, goal, talks about the failures that they had. The unsuccessful entrepreneurs, for like a better way to put it, those who never become entrepreneurs, never even tried, and therefore they don't have their failures. So it's kind of that fail fast, get the learnings, and then you can improve that. But you can't do it unless you put your scientist hat on, go in there, try it, figure out what happened here. Oh, I see. I never validated it appropriately. Or I realized when I validated it, I was asking leading questions, but I never actually had anybody who was committed to payment. So now maybe it means next time they're like, I'm going to pre-sell this thing and I'm going to show that I can. And then similarly, as you go along the lines, you might, find out, oh, I had a big design issue or I had this. But if you don't start, you never figure out what that is. And in the end, maybe it's you have something great, but nobody hears about it, which comes back down to the marketing. So you have to, every business goes through a failure somewhere to give them feedback on what they need to do better. So anyway, I like your way of framing that.
And I want to add to what you said. How many people know projects that have took like 2, 3, 5 years to go to market and then heard crickets? So what is the problem of you doing it so fast and going to market and failing? It's really a much smaller problem. And it's actually a good thing, because if you fail fast, you are not investing that amount of time, amount of money, and investing in so many resources. You are really going fast too. And that is one of the huge advantages of no code. It's not that you should, I will use just because it's no code and I don't have coding skills. That is one. But the point here is that the possibility of you growing this way, it's much bigger than hiring a developer, paying 2 years for them to build something that nobody wants.
Yeah, excellent point. And I think, tied to that too, I'll say, because I've been guilty of this one, is sometimes we also work to figure things out so much on our own. And this is going back to the benefits of being able to lean on people who've done this before in whether it's programs, courses, whatever it is otherwise we can spend 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years trying to learn all the time what we need to do. Whereas again, the reality is if somebody could say, do this, you do it. And then 1 month later, you have a result from it. You're going to learn more in that 1 month than you would have the 2 or 3 years of action faking, as you might call it, because you were, telling yourself you're making movement. But until you actually get feedback from a true product, you're not actually making progress, unfortunately. That's how I see it anyway.
Karla, can you build games with these tools?
Yes and no, depending on the type of game. So if you would do a game that's super interactive and so on, there are some tools that would offer that would emulate code too. There is one for kids. Right now, the name is not in my mind, but there is even one for kids that they can control Candly. So Candly, it's one that allows kids to draw whatever on paper, then scan it. And after they scan, they can allow simple things almost like these game fights, or like getting a little bit Super Mario, like that you get a prize, like a jump on a star. So you can do those actions. And you can also explain to the game very simply, like my stepkids also played with that. Like, I am all about education, right? Like if it's to play games, let's play creating the game. And they loved it. They really loved it because they could, for the first time, actually think of, what should happen here? What should happen there? So this type of games that are very simple but very entertaining for kids can be created. But the ones that use a lot of, I would say, a lot of graphic power and so on, I have not seen a no-code tool that does that well yet.
Got it.
And when it comes to API, I know you mentioned API integration. Does the API integration has to be something that, whether it's Figma, Bravo, one of the tools, already support, or can you integrate with anything?
Any API that gives you a result that is a JSON file, that is most of the APIs, though, if not all.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. This has been so fascinating. I think I have so much more questions for you, just from I want to do this myself, from that angle. And I need to come up with an idea. And I've had an idea for a while. I just didn't know where to go with it. And kind of in the same way you talked about the goal of it, this idea of mine, the goal is not downloads and revenue. The goal of this idea is actually educating my kids. What I want to build for them, and I know there's some out there, but I haven't seen a good one yet, but it's helping them learn Armenian, because that's kind of what I am. My kids, being born and growing up in the US, they're not around a lot of of Armenian speaking all day. So their Armenian is very weak. So I want an app that actually helps them speak that, learn better speaking. So you've inspired me to look into that further today. So thank you for that. Where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, or also on my website, vitaminak.design. I am every day there on LinkedIn talking about no code as well on X. And love to connect with everyone. I'm really into, like, if you want to start your journey with no code, come talk to me. If you have an idea, want to build it and want my guidance, also, I'm open doors.
Well, thank you so much. I think probably people have a lot of questions, so drop them in the comments below or reach out to Karla directly or reach out to us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Karla.
Thank you, guys. It was great to be here.